Numbers chapter 31 here, continuing on with this story. So today we're going to get back into the story of the children of Israel more now. Instead of, we've spent a lot of time talking about rules and laws and other things, but now we're getting back into the story. So if you remember at this point, okay, the children of Israel are getting closer to getting into the promised land, but they're running into these tribal groups, these people who have lived in the areas in and around the promised land. So they're dealing with these tribes. And if you remember, okay, the Midianites are the people who Balak is their king. And so they are, remember, Israel has kind of gone up and around, and they're trying to get through these people. And this guy doesn't want to have to deal with them, so he hired a prophet to come and try to curse them, and the prophet ended up blessing them, and instead of cursing them, so that made Balak mad. But he gave Balak an idea of God won't bless the children of Israel if they're doing wicked. So Balak comes up with this idea of treating them, convincing them, basically tempting them to be bad, and they'll lose the extra blessings of God, thus giving his army a chance. So that's where we're at now. Remember, Phinehas slayed several people, and a lot of people died in a plague because they were doing wicked. So we're continuing on in that point in this story. So today the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites. Afterward thou shalt be gathered unto thy people. So he's saying, the Lord is telling him basically, look, they have done you wrong. They're trying to destroy you. You need to stop this, basically. Verse 3, Moses spake unto the people, saying, Arm some of yourselves unto the war. Let them go against the Midianites, and avenge the Lord of Midian. Of every tribe 1,000 throughout all the tribes of Israel shall you send to war. So there were delivered out of the thousands of Israel 1,000 of every tribe, so 12,000 armed for war. So now they've pulled an army of 12,000 to go to fight the Midianites, who are trying to stop them, basically. So there's a lot of conflict going on here. Verse 6, Moses sent them to the war, 1,000 of every tribe, them and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, to the war with the holy instruments and the trumpets to blow in his hand. If you remember back in Leviticus, they talked about these trumpets. They build these trumpets and they use them to announce Israel. They use them to announce warnings and to communicate with the people. So they're sending the trumpets to announce Israel and to help them in the war efforts. If you've ever watched a battle scene from a medieval time or ancient times, oftentimes they will use horns to sound different sounds, different cadences, different things like that, to tell their armies to do things different. So when you hear this sound, you go this way. If you hear this sound, that means retreat. This sound means the left side goes this way. This other sound means the right goes that way. So because radio wasn't around, they didn't understand how to use radio waves, that they used sound and sometimes waving flags or moving flags around to signal to their armies, here's the communication, here's the instructions of what I want you to do, basically. So that's what they're doing here. Verse 7, they warred against the Midianites as the Lord commanded Moses, and they slew all the males. They slew the kings of Midian, beside the rest of them that were slain, namely, and they go through a bunch of names of these kings. Balaam, also the son of Beor, they slew with the sword. So he was still there. He was the prophet, basically. The children of Israel took all the women of Midian captives and their little ones, and took the spoil of all their cattle and their flocks and all their goods. They burnt all their cities wherein they dwelt, and all their goodly castles with fire. They took all the spoil, all the prey, both of men and of beasts. They brought the captives and the prey and the spoil unto Moses and Eleazar the priest, and unto the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the camp at the plains of Moab, which are by Jordan near Jericho. So remember, when they talked about the Midianites and the shorelines of their land, they're talking about the River Jordan and the Dead Sea, basically. So the Midianites are right along that sea, right along the not the ocean, but the Dead Sea, basically. So they brought them in. They're near Jericho, and it's fascinating to keep bringing up Jericho because that's going to come up here in another couple of books. Verse 13, Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the princes of the congregation went forth to meet them without the camp. And Moses was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, which came from the battle. Moses said unto them, Have ye saved all the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Israel, through the counsel of Balaam, to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him. But all the women children, or young women, that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. So, you remember, just a couple of chapters ago, we learned that the Midianites had actually purposefully sent their women to tempt the men of Israel, to cause lasciviousness, to encourage them to commit sin. So what we learned in verse 16 in here is that little snippet of information that we didn't get in that previous chapter. That Balaam, this prophet, well, he was a righteous enough guy to gain revelations and guidance from God and to speak with God. He taught Balak, if you remember, this idea that if they do wicked, then they lose their favor with God. So Balak set this up. So Balaam, of course, stayed, and he ended up getting killed with the rest of the Midianites. But it was his idea to say, look, you can't fight Israel. There's no way you're going to beat them because they have the favor of the Lord. But if they commit sin, they will no longer have the favor of the Lord. And then you have a better chance of winning. So that's what Balak did, basically. He tempted them so that they would commit sin, and then God would be mad at the children of Israel, and they would get cursed. So this was on Balaam's advice. This verse 16 is a little snippet of information we didn't get in that previous chapter. So, okay, now verse 19, do ye abide without the camp 7 days. Whosoever hath killed any person, whosoever hath touched any slain, purify both yourselves and your captives on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. Purify your raiments made of skins, go through the whole thing. So that's the rites of purification that we've talked about in the past. So they're going and doing that, like we've discussed. And verse 21, and Eleazar the priest said unto the men of war which went to battle, This is the ordinance of the law which the Lord commanded Moses. Only the gold and the silver, the brass, iron, tin, and lead, everything that may abide the fire, ye shall make it go through the fire, and it shall be clean. Nevertheless, it shall be purified with the water of separation, and all that abideth not the fire, ye shall make go through the water. So they're burning things. If it can't survive a burning, so like clothing, they're burning clothing, wood, all that stuff's not going to survive the fire. So metals are going to survive. This is interesting because if you think about it, if there was disease among the Midianites, this is going to kill a lot of disease by burning everything. Because if it survives the fire, you've heated it up, most things, viruses, bacteria, parasites, all that stuff are going to be gone. They're going to be eradicated. Any fleas or stuff on your clothes, all going to be gone. So things that will transmit disease are wiped out through the fire. Whether that was the purpose of the fire, not sure. If you think there is another purpose for that fire, maybe more of a ritual purpose or something, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you on that. But then they do the water of separation. Remember, this is that special water that has some ash with it. You remember you burn the red calf, I believe, and then they have those ashes and you mix that with water outside the camp and those kinds of things. You shall wash your clothes on the 7th day, shall be clean. Afterwards you shall come to the camp. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take the sum of the prey that was taken, both of man and of beast, thou and Eleazar the priest, and the chief fathers of the congregation, and divide the prey into 2 parts, between them that took the war upon them, who went out to battle, and between all the congregation. So the people who went out and fought are getting a portion of what they brought back, and then there's a portion that's going to go generally to the people to help them out. Verse 28, and levy a tribute unto the Lord of the men of war which went out to battle, 1 soul of 500, both of the persons and of the beeves and of the asses and of the sheep. Take it of their half and give it unto Eleazar the priest for an heave offering of the Lord. So they're going to take some of this and give it to the priests, basically as an offering to the priests. Remember the heave offering, they do stuff with it, and they go through, if you can look that up in Leviticus, then most of the heave offerings and wave offerings are given to the priests. They get to keep it, basically. So this is a little bit of a bonus for them. Verse 30, in the children of Israel's half, thou shalt take 1 portion of 50 of the persons of the beeves, asses, and flocks of all manner of beasts, and give them unto the Levites, which keep the charge of the tabernacle of the Lord. So 1/50th goes to the Levites directly. Let's see, take of the tribute, 1 out of 5, if I remember right, is what we just read. 1 soul of 500, basically. And take it half of that and give that to the heave offering to the Lord. So those are the things they're going to do to help divide out the spoils, basically. Verse 31, Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded Moses, and the booty, being the rest of the prey which the men of war had caught, was 600,000, 70,000, and 5,000 sheep. So a lot, 675,000 sheep. It's quite a lot of sheep. I think verse 32 is probably the first time in history, considering this is like this is probably around 35 to 2500 BC, that the word booty was being used to talk about your rewards. So pirates didn't come up with that word. It's Old Testament. Moses had that word long before we had pirates in the East India Company and all those fun things. All right, so now they're going to go through and talk about these portions and put a number to them. So we're not going to read through that. If you want to read it, you can read through those and see it's a lot, hundreds of thousands of sheep and cattle and goats and lots of money and all kinds of things that they received in here. So then they pulled this all together. They got all the jewels. They did everything. They did the atonement sacrifice to go through. They did the cleansing sacrifices outside the camp. They got everything figured out. And then, let's see, they offered gold and jewels up to the Lord. They divided everything out, got it all taken care of, basically, and put it all in place. So they have won and destroyed the Midianites, basically. So the only people of Midianite descent that were left were young women. They were kept, and they'll probably be used as servants, possibly wives. We don't, as of this point, we don't have information on what happens to them. But that does mean if they are wives and then bear children, that Midianite DNA is going to stick around and mingle with Israel DNA and probably just be folded into the Israelite nation, basically. So there could be a subgroup of their haplotypes or DNA types. So let's see what happens in the next chapter for the continuation of this story.